Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Reapiron, and today we're going to be going over another Deep Rock Galactic build guide. This is going to be on the Breach Cutter. Once again, I am using karl.gg/build. This is a free calculator where you can see all of your weapon stats and all of these multipliers and exactly what they do. You can also see whatever overclocks you have, or whatever overclocks are available for this weapon. But I will not be going over them in this video because that changes the builds up quite a bit with the Breach Cutter. So in this video, I'm going to be going over 3 different builds that I use for the Breach Cutter. Sort of 4, more like 3.5, because one of them is just an alternative based on whichever perks I'm running or not running. I'll talk about that one first because that's my general purpose build. And I'm usually running the perk Born Ready, where I have a 5-second reload automatic once I put a weapon away. It works out pretty well with Engineer because their secondary weapons like the Grenade Launcher and Breach Cutter reload fairly slow, and reloading the platform gun is kind of a slow process too. So it's kind of nice to have that, and I usually run it. So I'll be explaining what each of these do and then talking about each of the builds that I use. First up with the most basic build that I use the majority of the time. So we have Prolonged Power Generator. This makes it so our projectile life is an additional 1.5 seconds. So instead of being 1.5 seconds, it's then 3 seconds. This makes it so your beam can last longer. 3 seconds is usually enough to go the entire length of whatever room that you're in. Most rooms in this game aren't massively large, so it's not that bad to just have the 1.5 seconds. The 3 seconds will pretty much guarantee that you can reach as far as you can realistically aim, because the Breach Cutter does move fairly slow with its projectile speed. So this does help, and I do like taking this. Our other option here is high capacity magazines. This makes it so we go from holding 3 rounds to 6 rounds. Great one too. I usually go with the Prolonged Power Generator, but if you don't like that, then the high capacity magazines is a really good choice too. In tier 2, we have expanded ammo bags. This gives us 6 more ammo, so we go from holding 12 to holding 18. Always great. We have condensed plasma. This makes it so we get another 175 damage per second, so we go from 575 to 750. Great. You can deal a lot of damage with the Breach Cutter very quickly. And then we have loosened node cohesion. This makes it so our plasma beam width is doubled, which is really nice. It means we can hit potentially twice as many enemies as we normally would, and our shots are more forgiving because we have that one way or the other. So I like this one. I actually like all of these. I usually go with the loosen nodes just so that I get that extra forgiveness on my shot, so I can hit more enemies potentially, or at least try to hit the enemy that I'm aiming for. In tier 3, we have quick deploy. This makes it so there is no longer a 0.2 second delay on our shot, so when we shoot out our shot, it'll open up immediately rather than taking that 0.2 seconds to open up to hit enemies. This one's great. It makes it so we can hit enemies closer to us much more reliably. Our other option is improved case ejector. This gives us faster reload speed by 0.4 seconds. This still doesn't reload the Breach Cutter incredibly quick. Breach Cutter does reload kind of slow regardless, and if I'm running Born Ready, I don't need extra reload speed. I usually just want the quick deploy so that I can shoot the gun quicker, because I'm likely just going to shoot this gun a couple times, put it away, and then whenever there's a big enemy again, I'll pull it back out, and then it's bound to have, all of its ammo in it. In tier 4, we have armor breaking. This gives us 200% more armor breaking from our 100%, so we go to 300%. The Breach Cutter is already really good against armored enemies. This makes it even better. Our other option is disruptive frequency tuning. This makes it so we have a 100% stun chance whenever we hit anything with the beam, and it will stun it for 3 seconds. This is great for big stuff. Not so great for little stuff because the Breach Cutter will likely kill anything that's small that you hit with this. But it is good for armored targets, and it's good for like oppressors and Praetorians that you might not kill to stun them. With this build though, I usually go with the armor breaking just so I can hurt those big enemies even more. In tier 5, we have explosive goodbye. This makes it so when you fire out a beam, and either if you pull the trigger again or if it reaches the end of its life, whether that be hitting into a wall or it actually goes the 1.5 or 3 seconds, it will then explode, dealing 40 damage of fire damage to all enemies around it for the next 4.6 seconds, which is oddly specific. This can be really good. It will also deal damage to all friendlies though too. So if you shoot this out and then immediately explode it and then run into it or something, you could potentially kill yourself with your own Breach Cutter, or you could kill allies with it fairly easy. I don't really care for explosive goodbye all that much. It's not bad if your team knows what you're doing. If the team doesn't know what you're doing, then it's not as useful because teammates will likely just jump over there or try to get closer to get better shots or something and might end up killing themselves. One of our other tier 5s is Plasma Trail. This is essentially the same thing as Explosive Goodbye, except for you don't need to detonate it. It just appears right behind your Plasma Trail, dealing damage to all enemies that walk through it. This one, again, I don't really care for. It's okay if you're in a defensive position where you can fire this down like a longish hallway or something, like if the driller drilled out an area. You can deal a lot of damage then to small enemies, but most of the time your areas are not like that. It's not as useful as it seems like it could be in certain situations. And our last option is triple split lines. This gives us an additional line above and below our original line. So we have 3 lines then. This does not triple your damage at all. It actually doesn't increase your damage whatsoever, but it does increase your hit probability because you have then a line above and below, so you can hit more enemies and you can hit larger enemies easier. You can also hit smaller enemies easier. It's definitely what I would recommend you take and use if you are planning on using this weapon against like MacTerra, because otherwise it's really difficult to hit them with this. It's not a great weapon to try to do that with in the first place. Your primary weapons and your sentry gun are better options for that. But if need be, you can fire this into a kind of dense group of MacTerra and usually do decently well against them. So this is my general purpose build that I usually run. I do modify it if I'm not running Born Ready by taking high capacity magazines just so I don't have to reload as often. And I usually go with the quick fire or the improved case ejector so that I can reload a little bit quicker. The rest I keep the same, but this is just so that my reloads don't take as long and I don't have to reload as often. So that's the only real difference. I still use the weapon all the same. So that's really the first build and a half-ish. The second build I'd recommend is just going full damage build with the Breach Cutter, which is a lot of fun. That's going with either tier 1 is fine. They're honestly both pretty good. Going with Condensed Plasma to get your DPS up even higher. Going with the Quick Deploy to fire out your round quicker. Armor Breaking to hurt larger enemies. And then Explosive Goodbye to deal the most amount of damage to enemies. This can work quite well against big enemies, as well as it can work fairly well against small enemies because you can soften them up with Explosive Goodbye. I mean, if you hit them directly with the beam, it's going to kill them. But if you don't, you still have Explosive Goodbye to hurt all enemies around you. And again, like I said, you can hurt allies with this one, so you do have to be a little bit careful with it. It's really good in combination with the turrets, though. If you're running like double turrets, you can kill pretty much any type of swarm. And then the last build that I would recommend is more of a status build for the Breach Cutter, but it still does a ton of damage to big enemies, so don't be afraid to just launch it at enemies. That's usually going with the high capacity magazines, just so that I have more ammo in my gun, the extended ammo bags, so that I get the most amount of ammo that I can. Quick Deploy, because I'm likely going to be running Born Ready so I can reload quicker and I don't need the extra reload time. Then I run the Stun, which makes it so I can stun as many enemies as possible. And I go with the triple split lines. This just makes it so I can hit enemies much easier and stun them. This is great for big enemies, especially if you're getting a lot of large things like Praetorians, or you're on a elimination board where you can hit Dreadnoughts with it. It works pretty well then. The high damage build also works quite well against Dreadnoughts. These are the 3 builds that I use the most with the Breach Cutter, not counting overclocks, because overclocks change the way that you use this weapon a lot. And we'll be talking about that another time, because I have actually got to try out quite a few of the really fun ones with this, and I've really been enjoying it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys aren't subscribed, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post any of these. And I hope you guys have a great day. I will talk to all of you guys next time. Until then, stay cool, and bye.